Episode 60, Regeneration. I enter the divine, in the midst of that amniotic liquid in which we all bathe before, during, and after our lives. I dove into it as I did in the lake of that eternal Galilee that I loved so much. And in that lake, located in Shambhala, mysteriously imprinted in my memory. In the middle of that incredible peace, I did not see the path taken by my body, or noticed the large piece of linen that was used to transport it among the bushes and the slippery stone, drenched by the rain. I was elsewhere, with the same intensity as if I was still inhabited by the spirit of the sun. I was contemplating the earth and the myriad of life forms that were struggling on it. I was just capable of loving and comforting, because beyond all the discourses, there was nothing else to do. All the distress of the world was due to the fear of welcoming life. A part of my consciousness was aware of the location where this flesh and these bones, holding together by a slight breathing, were taken. I know that a threshold was crossed, and that my form was placed on a cold and solid slab. I could have said, I am living. I am abandoning the illusion of this world. I know another one, which in truth is mine. As these thoughts were spinning in me, the sight of my body came back. It was resting at the center of a piece of fabric on a slab of stone. I found my body dignified. Was it really mine? I never had the occasion or the desire to look at it, but it looked almost unrecognizable under the blood streaks and the blows on its skin. I simply wanted to see in it the respectability of that temple that was dedicated to my father. Very slowly, my perception increased, and I realized that I was in the grotto that my uncle Yusuf had recently built, officially for himself, on the slopes of his garden. The grotto was rather deep and was composed of two rooms. My body was resting in the second room. I realized that two men were crouching in the first room. In the dark, helped by the dancing light of oil lamps, they were busy mixing powders and oils. I recognized them. They were the brothers from Heliopolis. At the same time, I recognized the silhouettes of Yusuf, my uncle, and Eleazar, walking away in the night to join a group of men that I could not recognize. Everything seemed so perfect, so coherent, and my soul was feeling an incredible serenity in this place. A powerful smell of camphor invaded me. That smell brought me close to my body. One of the two men, the one with the dark skin, named Balthazar, was massaging my throat gently with a yellow balm, while the other man was cleaning my wounds and all the blood streaks with a fabric moist with water. Death, they were hoping. As far as me, my soul full of tenderness, I did not go through the phase of hope. I totally realized that I wanted, that I had always known, that my role did not stop here. Not on this hill or this place, saturated with blood and torments. No, Yeshua was not born for suffering, and it would not be said that he would leave the suffering as a path to follow or a fatality to embrace in order to drink the sun. Yes, drink the sun. The expression was coming back to me. I had always enjoyed these words that I had pronounced one day in company of Yohanan, and I was resolute to continue their spreading among the human race. There was a moment when the two brothers from Heliopolis were taking turn to vigorously massage my limbs and thorax with various oils, forcing a little bit of liquid to come out of my wounds on the right side. One of them placed plants-based poultices where the nails had pierced my body, and then they regrouped in a corner of the room, veil on their faces. Thus, sitting on the ground, they started reciting litanies according to a special rhythm and in a language unknown to me, but similar to the language used by Elohim. It was an immense happiness to let them work on me. I knew and was feeling that the vibration of their mantras were regenerating and activating the circulation of blood in my flesh. I let them work on me without a single thought. The night was well advanced when the brothers stopped their litanies. The two brothers raised and placed with infinite precautions the large piece of linen on my body. This linen should have been my shroud, but when it was placed on my chest, the gaze of my soul perceived it otherwise. It had become a matrix, the receptacle of a rebirth for which I was eager to participate. I saw the brothers of Heliopolis bow longly in front of my form, their arms crossed on their chest and their face covered by a veil. Then they exited the tomb, and with the help of a third person, I heard that they were rolling the large stone closing the tomb. There it was. I was alone, finally alone. My destiny imposed itself to me, progressively, lately, and I needed to express my gratitude to the plan. I was still hearing voices outside. It was Romans, most likely sent by Pilate to watch the tomb. My consciousness expanded, and I saw the two men soaked by the rain. They were furious to be there and were arguing with each other. Without waiting, I returned near my body. I had decided that this body was simply asleep because blood was still running and a light breathing was perceptible. It meant that I could wake it up. Hawun did not want me yet, nor that space where I could be Sananda. In truth, I ignored how to wake up my body, but I was convinced that its gem was waiting in the light of the night. I was convinced to seize it because the essence of life is pulsing around us, always. We are breathing it, we are drinking it. You cannot just believe, thinking that beliefs do all, but you have to be in its reality, without borders. The body of the human incarnated is equipped with 7 gates, or 7 major flames. I understood that I needed to visit them one after the other. I would approach it from top to bottom, from the crown to the kingdom, Sahasrara to Muladhara chakra. Step by step, my soul was going to shake my flesh by penetrating it again through all its levels. I started by conceiving this body in thoughts, to picture it small, like a fetus. When the idea and the picture were completed and perfect, I went down in it in spirit, as if I was laying down on a beach and that this beach was gliding into the sea. I penetrated my carnal envelope by the top of my skull. The space inside was deserted, immense, and of a virginal white. I was back inside my home. Immediately, I knew that this home had to become again the temple that it had been, and for that, I needed to call it by its fundamental name, using a very intimate and harmonic sound. It was the condition required to open all the gates, the forehead, the throat, the heart, the plexus, the sacral, all the way to the root in the perineum. I found the fundamental name. It was not very far. Simply, I started singing it in my soul. At that point, the fetus, designed by my soul, went to lodge itself in the center of my forehead, which was waiting. All was indigo in color, and all was singing the vibration of Amen to dilate and activate Ajna. A new key was given to me. Still in my form of fetus, I pushed open the second gate, the blue gate, located in the throat, using the sound hem. Suddenly, I felt my thorax trying to raise and my lungs searching for the fresh air of the night. 16 times the vibration of the hem traveled to it. But I needed to descend further and immerse myself in the emerald of that heart that was calling me, that was hoping, looking for compassion and sharing. Yad, Yad, 12 times. With this, it seemed to me that something in my being was able to touch again. It was incredibly powerful, and it repeated, "Go forward, go forward." Pushed by my spirit, my soul in its fetus clothes was only looking for this. I crossed the threshold of the next gate, radiant like a yellow sun. Waves of light were bursting, following the rhythm of Rem, repeated 10 times. I was taken by the strength of these waves to the next gate, color saffron, the gate that sings the Wam, the sacred sound, 6 times. I abandoned my vertigos and was reactivating the full contact with my flesh and bones. It was so intense that a new pulsion of life pushed me towards the ultimate gate of my rebirth, the one known as Muladhara or Malkuth. The smell of camphor hit me again, sending me in a red fog, regenerating my strength of man. Lam, 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 repeated 4 times, the intelligence of that red fog. A buzzing, followed by an oscillations, and then a subtle but a powerful wave of energy went from the bottom to the top. The linen fabric, the slab, and the ground were reappearing under me. I was just coming out of the coma. I had been able to stimulate the myriad of stars of my flesh. The fetus form, driven by my spirit and my soul to the depths of my body, had achieved its work. Back inside me, in the temple that was again lent to me, and in which I had decided to continue my journey, my first sensation was an infinity of small tremors and ants in my limbs. I remember staying for a long time in that state, totally immobile, unable to open my eyes or unclench my lips. Yes, I was back, not from the death, but from my suffering and the separation that I had decided to take to sublime the pain. I was back to continue loving, speak about the beauty of loving, and perhaps, if I was allowed, to redefine love itself. Outside, behind the stone's door of my tomb, lightning fell in the garden as the ground trembled. I loved hearing it. From where I was, it was obvious that the entire nature was exulting. The departure of the double suns, the Christic energy, who had nested themselves in me for 6 years, was relieving the earth from a very heavy load. The blessed one was becoming again human. I prayed the eternal. I thank him for this grace, and that helped me to jump over time. Then I tried moving my arms and legs and forced my breathing, trying to control my body again. However, I could not do it, as I was a giant wound, a carcass that had been beaten and whose strength was still very weak. Just a few hours were separating me from the wood of my cross. In fact, it was far away from my preoccupations. In my head and in my heart, I had already turned a page, and I was only thinking at the new page. This new page would not be as beautiful as the previous one, with all these beloved faces, these sceneries so captivating, these words of wisdom, and these hands that were healing so many. Everything would take another dimension. Again, I tried moving a limb. Only my eyelids managed to open. I needed help. Perhaps once standing up, my energy would come back. I needed some actions. With a supreme effort, I managed to move very slightly my feet and my right arm. That was enough to push away the shroud that was covering my face. For the first time, my physical eyes saw the inside of the crypt that Yusuf had built. Only 2 to 3 oil lamps were still burning. I was suddenly filled with a familiar sensation, but somehow unexpected. I was guessing the presence of Elohim in his pulsating craft, somewhere above the city of Jerusalem. I was feeling this maternal well being over me. I called him, and the sound of his name was the first to come out of my chest, which was learning how to breathe again. However, I was not expecting an answer, because I knew that for those who carry life, solitude is the best virtue to go through challenging trials. I was in this state of consciousness and this gratitude in my heart when I heard the large stone of the tomb being pushed. Behind it, I could hear multiple voices, panting, and some serious. It was my uncle Yusuf, two of the brothers from Heliopolis, and Simon. Only Yusuf entered the second room, where I was laying. Our two gazes meeting was a mix of incredulity and marvel, gratitude, complicity, and tenderness. My uncle passed his hand on my forehead and could not contain a river of tears. I could only smile to him with my eyes, as my lips refused to be controlled. He then placed a knee on the ground and told me a few words that will always remain between us. He then stood up and called the brothers from Heliopolis, who were waiting outside. After they checked me with eyes dilated and wrinkles on my forehead, I managed to say a few words. Awun Nes Radash Mach. Father, may your name be sanctified in Aramaic. Brothers, help me stand up. The brothers did not respond anything, and they could only bow in front of me. Despite trying everything they could, it was hard for them to accept that I was alive. Outside, some noises were heard, and a gust of wind came into the crypt, waking up the two Egyptian brothers from their surprise. They started massaging my body vigorously with a thick and very fragrant oil. Finally, they helped me sit up on the edge of the coffin lid. One of the two therapists wrapped a large band around my thorax, and they helped me slide into a new robe. All this motivated me to stand up. I took a long breath. Any motion of my body was a horrible pain, and my back was an immense burn. Holding me under the armpits, I tried to take a few steps. In fact, I could not feel my feet, which was an advantage at this point. Balthazar quickly wrapped my feet with some fabric. Seeing my motions and my will, my uncle Yusuf gave a few orders outside the tomb. I heard the hooves of a horse. Inside myself, I said, Father, hold my body in the same way you hold my soul. I do not know where you want to take me, but place your sunshine on my path now that your energy has left my flesh. Yusuf came to me holding a wool coat and a large veil. Master, we have to leave as soon as possible. The horse is waiting. Will you be able to ride it? It was strange to be called master, now that I knew to be alone in my body. I felt a small ping in my heart. To only be Yeshua, it was creating in my center an abyss that I needed to fill very quickly. Supported and helped, I made a few steps outside the crypt. I was in the fresh air, under a breeze, and the rain was falling. A horse was there, held by a man who was trying to calm the impatient animal. There was no traces of the Romans. They must have sought refuge from the rain. Soon I saw Simon and his wife come out of the darkness with two other people. They were drenched and had most likely waited all night, hoping. They all helped me sit on the horse and covered me with the large coat. I will never forget their faces, tired, surprised, but so happy. As far as Miriam and my mother, a voice was telling me that they were not too far. Yusuf, however, had told me that my mother was not here, as it was way too dangerous for her. She had stayed with Eleazar and Nicodemus. For Miriam, my wife, her untamable nature made it impossible for her to be away, and I knew that I would find her soon. From the vantage point of my horse, held by the brothers of Heliopolis, I did not want to miss anything of that path we had taken to go down to the valley. Dawn was just starting, and these moments were so precious. Under some trees, I noticed three silhouettes. The horse was led to them. Everything was perfectly planned in a marvelous logic. Under heavy veils, I recognized the worried faces of Miriam, Shlomit, and Yakuba. I would have loved putting my feet on the ground, hold them in my arms, and tell them the love that was given to me for humankind. It was intact in my chest, but I did not have the physical strength to do it. Miriam jumped to me and grabbed my leg on the side of the horse. The mirrors of our souls met like they had never done it before, and then stayed hooked for a moment. How to express with words such fusion? Miriam could not speak a single word. She was suspended in the vacuum, full of happiness and hopes, although still horribly hurt by the images of the previous day. I told her the most beautiful words that my human heart could express. These will remain sealed in the secret of the Akashic memories. I will just say that these words were talking about this rendezvous that souls organized on the thread of eternity and of the silences that weave their love. I tried raising my back in fire, made a sign with my hand to Shlomit and Yakuba, weeping, and let the brothers take my horse away. The daylight was coming very fast, and the Roman soldiers would be back, and the festivities of Easter would also resume in the city. I did not know where they were taking me. We had to hurry. Without doubt, they would discover that the tomb was empty, and all kinds of hypotheses would be expressed, accompanied by accusations. Rome would feel cheated, and the Sanhedrin, insulted and angry, would scream to the hoax and plot. It was almost full daylight, and I was exhausted. We had reached a house, partially in ruins, in a small valley where almond trees were growing. Due to the storms, a few of the branches were broken, and I found that very touching. A simple bed was waiting for me in the humble abode, another proof that everything had been sought, planned, hoped for, and that the plan from Shambhala was unfolding naturally. I fell asleep on the bed of wool, forgetting all the pain of my body. My consciousness went asleep too, for many long hours, because when I came back, the day was almost over. Somewhere in the house, the brothers of Heliopolis were singing their healing mantras. Seeing that I was awake, they gave me some dry fruits, changed my bands and poultices, and after manifesting an infinite respect, invited me to sleep again. We would have to leave at dawn to reach a more secluded and secret place. While sleeping, a face was constantly coming back to me. There was so much love in him. It was Master Lyamas from India that I had seen while being nailed on the cross. I asked, "And Lyamas, you know him. Tell me." Balthazar responded to me, "He traveled such a long distance, and he's so old, Master. We do not know where he is right now. His heart was barely holding him." "Yes, oh yes, of course," I did answer in a long sigh. That night was pivotal. Despite its shortness, I could gather enough strength to survive and regain the control of my body. I know today that it would not have taken much for me to swing on the other side of life. When awake, they gave me some wine mixed with myrrh, and after a lot of efforts, I was riding the horse, covered with another wool coat that was also hiding my head. Then slowly we moved to the west, then north, between small hills, using the smallest paths available and sneaking between bushes and wild olive trees. I remember reviewing my entire life on that path and realizing that I had given everything to God. The sun, the Christic energy, was it possible that it had left my flesh? Yes, it was obvious, and I had to come to terms about it. However, I was realizing that its clarity, its transparency had not left my heart. Maybe it is this certainty that gave me the strength and the will to not slide away from this world. And today, 2000 years later, as I relive in me the memories of these crucial times, and that I contemplate what was said about the mysteries of Golgotha and the crypt, I only want to tell what took place and not what they tried to publish. In truth, they should have talked about regeneration instead of resurrection, since my heart never stopped beating and my soul never visited the kingdoms of death and come back. No, I am adamant about that. I was never asked to cross the threshold of life in both directions. The power allowed me to use my love and knowledge to repair and restore the subtle foundation of my body, because the time for me to leave that planet had not yet come. I was fully human, of course, But contrary to Elohim, I was feeling for humankind a maternal love, infinitely protecting, a love which even today remains intact. I wish that the exact truth had been revealed. However, the human consciousness from the collective to the individual is still asking for the grand schemes that were proposed to her using the principle of resurrection. A few people found in it their powers. If the known truth is not exactly a lie, it shows a definitive weakness. It will be necessary to learn how to get out of the dreams of this world and the dream of the worlds, and finally penetrate into the dream of what has created everything. I will never cease to say it. Embracing that essential dream will lead to unity. At dusk, after an endless day of riding through the hills, we finally arrived at the barn, lost in the laurels and fig trees. The sight of these trees immediately brought back some beautiful images in my soul. I had already sojourned in that barn with Miriam, Eleazar, and 20 other disciples who were listening to my words. The property, old, pretty but poor, was belonging to a distant cousin of Johanan. Seeing it again in this nest of greenery, I was taken by an immense wave of joy and gratitude, and hoped that I would stay here for a few more days. From the height of my horse, I immediately recognized, standing near the door, the silhouette of that shepherd of my memories. This brought back some life into my painful body, and I was able to dismount from my horse alone. I remember having to cry, laugh, and pray at the same time. I did not do any of it. I was simply so happy and peaceful because I could see that the sensitivity, the fragility, but also the vigor and determination of the Afshtara were taking over in me again. It was perfect.